Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Blockade Runner podcast number 276. My name is John, and joining me today is Ryan. Ryan, I was just inquiring, just as we were hitting record. How are you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. Yeah, I got in a pretty bad car accident last week. Totaled my car, like literally totaled. The insurance company classified it as a total loss. Um, and yeah, got banged up pretty bad. Got a concussion. Uh, do not recommend. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, we're glad to hear that you are doing okay
Mm-hmm.
and you've rested up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have you investigated purchasing a new Corellian craft of some kind now that the car is totaled, or have you
Yeah.
gone to the shipyards, or what are you doing?
I'm waiting for uh that check from the insurance company to be cut, and then I'm gonna head to the uh, Toyota dealership and put a down payment on something. But
On a new car?
in the meantime, I am just going to be taking a lift to work
Okay.
for the time being.
All right.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah, it's been an eventful week for you. Glad to hear you're
Yeah.
glad to hear you're doing okay. Um, and you were able to catch the newest episode of Skeleton Crew. Ryan, was that before or after the accident?
It was after. I watched it
Okay.
when it came on, and then as we were getting ready to record, um, I realized I didn't actually remember anything that happened in the episode. um, because yeah, a little bit of short-term memory loss in that window, like basically 3 days, you know, of the accident happening. And yeah, I realized, like, I was thinking about stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure we talked about that, so that must have been on the previous episode. And so I
All
had to
right.
go back and kind of scrub through it this afternoon to get a bit of a refresher, which was fun. Because usually when I like forget stuff that I watch, it's just because I'm like old, and that's like normal. But I'm like, this I should not have forgotten so quickly. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, but yeah, just did a little refresher on the episode. We're gonna be in so much trouble, I think it's called.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be in so much trouble. It's directed by Lee Isaac Chung and written by Ford and Watts.
Mm-hmm.
So Christopher Ford and John Watts. So who have written most of the episodes of the season, but not the previous two that we just finished. So yeah, we're gonna be in so much trouble. Let's jump into it and break it down, Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
before we look forward. Look forward to the final episode next week. Although it's bittersweet because I'm loving the show so much. I'm disappointed it's wrapping up, but it's always exciting to get to that finale episode
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so this episode opened up with the parents in the woods trying to send a message to the kids, trying to get a message through the barrier. We of course see that message later on in the episode, but they're out there in the woods and they're trying to get the message out to the kids. And I think Farah, Fern's mom, probably helped out with the I forget what she calls it, but she's like, oh, um, barrier codes or whatever they're called
Mm-hmm.
they're tough to come by, so don't screw this up. So I think she probably is the one that tracked that down. But yeah, they're out there trying to get a message to the kids, and they get busted by those security droids. They always seem to be those security droids. Always seem to be cruising around in the woods looking for somebody to bust. I guess I don't know. Um, but yeah, they get busted, and then they do a sort of heroic parental relay race with
Mm-hmm.
um, the communicator device, where they're trying to run away from these barrier, or I'm sorry, these security droids, and they're getting stunned along the way. But Farah does make it far enough away from those droids to kind of send the communicator up
Mm-hmm.
and out through the barrier, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the opening scene.
Yeah, yeah. The scene is funny because like the relay part is the only thing I could think of for this kind of like heroic relay, as you called it, is Rogue One, which is bad because I'm sure it happened in something before Rogue One and that scene at the end, but I cannot think of anything else. Um, but also, this scene has that extreme ET lighting going on
Yeah.
in it. um, very, very Spielberg esque, with the silhouettes lit in like blue lighting in the woods.
Yeah, these scenes in the woods all give me ET vibes and also Close Encounters,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yep.
feeling too, right? So
Yep.
yeah, but very Spielberg. And I don't know I'm not sure. It's been too long since I've seen Close Encounters, and I've seen ET a couple times in the last 10 years, but I'm not sure. Like her, like looking up to the sky and releasing that thing it just felt like those movies. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a scene in either of them that is like that specifically calling out to or referencing, or if it's really close to a specific moment in one of those movies. But yeah, the whole opening scene, as you said, very Spielbergian.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think it's hard to talk about this scene without maybe without like kind of talking about the message they send, which of course you don't know what the message they're sending is in the opening. You see it later,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I think the parents obviously at this point, even in the opening scene, have completely crossed that line of for a while there, it was like, well, if we put our faith in the institution of the supervisor and Ad Atten, it'll get taken care of. We just have to be patient. We just have to trust and whatever. And obviously, like the few times we've seen them in the last few episodes, it's been about like that conflict of like some of them, Farah mostly, I think, wanting to continue down that path, and other parents being like, whoa, we've got to get to our kids somehow. We've got to take matters into our own hands. And anyway, this opening scene, it's very clear that they are at that point now where they want to tackle this themselves. And so cool to see them taking action and trying to do what they can.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we cut back to the kids on the Onyx Cinder, and this scene, I think, is all about how the other three kids are pretty jubilant, pretty amped up, pretty hyped that they're almost home. Like they're on the way back to Ad Atten. They're very happy. I think, can't remember if it's Fern. It's definitely Fern and KB, or Fern and Neil, but they're like running down the hall of the ship, just laughing and being kids. But then Wim is like in his feelings, and Wim is upset because he's like, when we get back to Ad Atten, everything's going to be back to the way it was. Like we're going to have to take those exams again, and we're going to have to be thinking about our futures again, and it's going to be like back to the monotony and all that kind of stuff. And he's very disappointed, which tracks for his character. But I thought what was nice about this scene is that the other kids, and especially Fern, are very. They try to console him. They tell him that like maybe we can keep the ship when we get back home, and it's been an adventure. And the dialogue that really stuck out to me is Wim is like, I never should have touched that stupid button. In other words, I never should have like fired up this ship and taken us off Ad Atten. And Fern says, I'm glad you did. And it's just really demonstrative of the growth that she's had as a character, like the kind of arc that she's been on, the fact that like they've been obviously they've been a crew like this whole show, but they've been kind of adversaries too. Like they're not seeing things the same way. Fern and Wim, and Fern's whole thing has been like, oh, Wim, you're like a little kid and you're always causing problems, and you're too impulsive, and you're not as sophisticated and mature as I am, and all that kind of stuff. So for her to be the one to console him and like honestly just be kind to him, and try to like reinforce that it was an adventure worth having, was a nice moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So not a nice moment, Ryan, is the scene that follows, because so like the opening scenes here, we've got the kids. We've got the parents on Ad-Atten. We go to the kids on the ship. They see Ad-Atten again, which is cool. Like they're there. But then we cut to the pirates, and not nice is the fate of pirate Glurb. And Glurb is the one who he always dreamed of having that glow weed farm or whatever you call it under the ocean, the glow weed farm, and that's never going to happen now, Ryan.
No, it's not.
No, because the pirates also get to Ad-Atten, and they are like, Brutus is always ready to bust Jod's chops. He's always looking for an excuse to throw him out the airlock. And he's like, well, what a clown. We can't get through this barrier. Throw him out the airlock, Jod volunteers to take a scouter ship, like, back in himself. And Brutus is like, no, we're going to send Glurb. And it doesn't go well.
No, he gets vaporized.
He does get vaporized. Yeah. It was a big moment for him, though. I feel like he looked so cool, like popping down into that fighter. There's been shots like that in Star Wars too, but that was big Top Gun vibes right there, of him, popping down into the cockpit there and getting ready to take off. So, yeah, I hope. I don't know what is the appropriate thing to say in this moment with Glurb being gone. I hope he is enjoying the big glowweed farm in the sky or something like that. I hope he's in a better place with a lot of glowweed, like glowing weeds or something.
I would say it's a victory in the war on drugs. Personally, good riddance.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. You've come out of this car accident a changed man, Ryan. You're like a different person now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, because Glurb does not make it through the maelstrom, through the barrier, Brutus is like moments away. Brutus is like, throw him out the airlock, throw Jod out the airlock. But whoever it is, whatever pirate needs to like actually hit that button, is like moments away from throwing Jod out the airlock. But the Onyx Cinder shows up, and the same like older woman pirate who was like, no, the code, don't kill him yet. She's like, wait, there's a ship on our radar. And of course it's the Onyx Cinder. So I had to put in my notes, like, to me, I'm like, come on, the Jod's fate is linked with the kid's fate. You know what I mean? And it's like, that guy was going to be dead, and the only reason he's not dead is because the Onyx Cinder showed up, the kid showed up, and I'm like, they're linked. You know what I mean? He's trying to be separated from him now, but they're linked. And in my mind, that's a sort of a symbolic moment, where it's like, they're a symbiote, Ryan. Like, he's not getting away from them.
Maybe. To me, I would say this is the first of many coincidences in this episode. And I would say, like, pretty much, like, the next 15-20 minutes of this episode is, like, a lot of just silly coincidences, kind of back to back.
Okay. All right. Could be. I might be looking for something that's not really there because I want it to be. That's
Mm-hmm.
maybe a possibility, but that is how I interpreted it. From there, the pirates tracked her in the Onyx Cinder. And then I was writing my notes down. I don't know how to describe this, but Brutus goes to like approach the ship, say, hey, like give up, surrender,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And this mechanical like crane arm
Mm-hmm.
hand scoops him up.
Yeah.
I don't know what that thing is, like freight hand. I don't know what you'd call it, but
It's a claw machine. Like,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, at what needs to
What do you
happen,
call those in Japan? What do you call those in Japan?
UFO
Like
catchers.
yeah,
And
UFO catcher.
what absolutely needs to happen is someone needs to get like a stuffed Brutus figure or mini and put them in a UFO catcher, and it would be very funny to be picking him up and getting your stuffed soon to
If our
be
friend Dave in
dead Brutus.
if if our friend Dave in Japan is listening now, maybe he can make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan at Celebration in April. Like we had just noted that there's a lot of crane machines there,
Mm-hmm.
right? UFO catchers. So
Yeah, part one over.
like all Dave has to do is come up with like 50 stuffed Brutus dolls and access to a machine he can empty out, then replace the.
Yeah,
Seems pretty doable.
yeah. There
Um,
have been Star Wars things in UFO catchers in the past. I actually have a Last Jedi BB-8 from a UFO catcher, which is kind of
nice.
cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Well, so in that moment, when Brutus is kind of captured there, Jod walks up to him and he goes ahead and kills him in cold blood. He
Mm-hmm.
he blasts him, shoots him, kills him dead. And this is one of, I would say, this is the first of a couple instances where Jod is pretty severe in this episode and appears pretty severe and pretty deadly, pretty intimidating, pretty threatening, etc.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find this moment? Did it sit well with you? Did it like were you I don't know, what did you think about Jod's decision there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been on opposing sides of this, like the Jod actually a good guy debate, and I mean to me this is just kind of reinforcing um, my this episode reinforces my belief that Jod is not actually a good guy. Yeah.
Okay, fair. I mean, I look. He might not be a very good guy, and if he's not, this is definitely evidence to support that for sure, because he did straight up murder the dude.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Without honor.
I would argue,
He
yeah,
was helpless.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Um, counterpoint is that Brutus has been, working pretty hard to kill Jod in the last couple episodes, and repeatedly states to Jod, "I am gonna murder you first chance I get." In fact, one of the last things he says to Jod before this all happens is, "Treasure or not, you're a dead man,"
Mm-hmm.
or something along those
Mm-hmm.
lines. Like, I'm gonna kill you. So, I mean, you could argue like it's like a threat that Jod needs to take off the table or whatever. But and also I think it's a moment of I need to demonstrate to the rest of this crew that like I'm actually in charge. I'm not going to be pushed around. I'm not going to like grovel for the approval of some other captain. Like I'm the captain.
Mm-hmm.
So not that justifies it, makes it excuse me, moral or ethical or anything like that. But I think that's part of the thought process on Jod's part.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the primary thing is this guy wants to murder me and is repeatedly telling me he's going to murder me, so
Mm-hmm.
I probably better murder him first. But also, like, they're all watching, and he turns around and says he was a stinking, backstabbing mutineer. So part of it is theatrics for that pirate crew too.
Yeah, and I don't think it was the wrong decision for Jod. I think that was the thing to do there if you're him. Um, but yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm still not on on the the hero or good guy page with him, but that's okay. Like he's a good bad guy, so it's cool. But it is interesting that he had the he's a that those lines about like being a backstabbing mutineer, because the guy's name is Brutus, and that's funny because yeah,
Et tu,
history.
Brute?
Yeah, yeah,
Et tu, Brute?
yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad he didn't say that, though, as much as,
Mm.
you know, I do appreciate, literary references or whatnot. I'm glad he didn't say Et tu, Brute.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but yeah, that's a good point. I didn't actually think of that, and I should have because I've taught Julius Caesar a couple of times.
Yeah,
So yeah.
it's fun.
All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn my heat down because I think it's loud. All right. From there, after he does that, he orders the kids captured and tells his crew prepare the frigate to take Ad-Atten. So that's the deal. Like Brutus is gone, kids are captured. They're right there orbiting Ad-Atten. They just got to go through, and they believe that the Onyx Cinder is their means of getting there, which is correct.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pretty confident they can do it at that point. And we then are in the Onyx Cinder. We're with the kids, and they end up receiving the message from their parents at that point. And I love this little moment. Like I don't think I like really teared up. I actually teared up more in the previous episode, I think, than I did in this one, or maybe it was the one before that. But anyway, this show has made me tear up a few times. It would be reasonable for this one to be one. I might have gotten a goosebump or two. I don't think I teared up, but it was a really sweet scene nonetheless. Was it too sweet for you, Ryan, or did you?
Little bit, gave me a bit of a toothache.
Well,
Yeah,
a little. Okay, okay.
a little heavy-handed, but it's also like this is this is also kind of the nature of these of this style of story. Like you're going to get the parents being like, I miss you so much, I'm so proud of you, things.
Well, I think it was played really well because, or written really well because, or at least, um, each parent's message I think really fit with where like who they are as people and what their relationship is like with their kids. So like Farrah said, we love you so much and you're not in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we saw Farrah and Fern, it was like, oh my God, are you first in the class and all that kind of stuff. There's you got to be number one and all that. So for her to be like, you're not in trouble, I think that tracks with like what we know about their relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the right dialogue there. And I love the Neil thing. Like, I know it's very, it's so schmaltzy or whatever, but the Neil dialogue was like, your baby brother lost a tooth and he got a shiny new dactyry. But he said all he wants is his big brother,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh my God, it's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
I love it,
Mm-hmm.
But what do we know about Neil and his family? Like they're all around the dinner table together and like they really like each other and they have this like there was none of the strife that we saw in those other relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the communication between him and his parents to be like the most straightforward, like, uplifting and or just, I don't know, lovey-dovey.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. And then I really appreciated the fact I think they could have gone too far with Wim's dad. I thought like both what he said in the message here and then when they're reunited later, like it felt perfect to me in the sense that it was apologetic and he was like he just was being warm, but it wasn't like over the top. Like if he was talking the way Neil's parents were talking, like that wouldn't feel right to me, because like we know that that's not what the home life is like between them and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But also it was he certainly was like I've been too hard on you. Like, I want you to know that I miss you and we want you home and we love you and that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, he didn't say that, but that was like the tone. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So what he said is, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. And yeah, that's what he didn't do, right? Like, I'm not going to read you a book. I'm, I don't care why you were late to your test, like all that kind of stuff, right? He just ignored his kid. And so for his line to be, I'm sorry I didn't listen to you, like that's the perfect like thing for him to say there, or that's what he needed to say. And like, so I think that was great. Well written, good stuff. Um, so from there, the kids are like, "Oh my god, our parents love us. We better like, we better like run a mutiny here. We better, we'll
Mm-hmm.
just take the ship." Actually, Wim says it. It's like a great line. Wim's like, we have to retake the ship, or like we have to take the ship back, or something. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what he said. We have to take the ship back. Yeah, as if that's gonna happen, right? But like, so they like make a 15-second attempt to take control of the ship back, which of course doesn't work, and then they outsmart Jod in a pretty fun um, moment.
Yeah, I'm very confused at this point about what the pirate rules are because it's just like it's ridiculous. I mean, I think it's maybe it's supposed to be like silly, but
Yeah,
it's just like it's this is what I was talking about with like those, you know, the types of coincidences that we keep seeing in this episode. Like, yeah, it's I don't know, it's fine.
well, I think the pirate code looks like, increasingly it looks more like the kind of dumb rules that kids make up, for their games and stuff, which is
Mm-hmm.
exactly like what it's compared to, or it operates in the same way here, because what ends up happening is Fern is like uh asked 33 to do something or whatever, and Jod is like, no, no, I'm the captain. And 33 is like, well, actually,
Mm-hmm.
pirate code says you can only be captain of one vessel, right? And so right now there is no captain of the Onyx Cinder. And so Fern's like, I call it, I claim it, I claimsies,
Mm-hmm.
and Jod's like, no, you're not, we're not doing claimsies. I'm the captain of the Onyx Cinder or whatever. And then Fern just is like, no, unclaimsies. I call unclaimsies on you, and I claim it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it's totally like a callback to that opening episode with the whole claimsies thing and all that, which was really funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the pirate code ends up working exactly like the kids on the playground being like, I called it,
Mm-hmm.
or claimsies or whatever. But I absolutely loved the moment where Jod's like, no, it doesn't work like that. And then the next thing you know is he gets popped in the face by 33. 33 punches his lights out. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was hilarious.
Okay.
I thought you might say, yes, I also found it funny, or I thought you might say, nah, that wasn't funny.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Aggressively fine.
Uh
It
huh.
was a
Uh huh.
thing that happened
Yeah.
that was
It's
okay.
very silly. Like this whole section is just very silly. Like
I know, but it's so fun.
it's again like you know this the show just it fully leans into what it is, which is just like a silly, low stakes, like fun, snappy, breezy Star Wars thing, and
Yeah,
yeah, so it
yeah.
does that very well.
What do you make of the fact that as soon as Jod becomes the leader of his pirate gang again or whatever, he puts that helmet back on?
Yeah, like what that made me think of is we I don't believe we ever saw what happened to him in the first episode. Right? When Brutus is like, put him in the airlock, which is like his sitcom line. Um and the studio audience goes wild whenever Brutus says into the airlock.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um
It's his did I do that?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, we didn't actually see what happened to him, so I wonder if that will be like a little flashback in the final episode. because like somehow his helmet was okay and no one else was wearing it, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my thought was like, why does he need it? You know what I mean? Like, what does he gain from wearing that thing? You know what I mean? Everyone knows who he is. He's run around like in front of them, seemingly often without a helmet, and so he puts it on. Why? Is it like a security blanket? Is it a when I wear this helmet, then I feel like I can be the big bad pirate captain guy, and without it, I'm I'm more exposed or vulnerable or whatever, and I don't want them to see any vulnerability, that kind of thing. Like that's what I was kind of wondering about. Like what does he get from wearing the helmet? And I feel like Star Wars has asked that question with helmeted characters a fair amount. Like we know why Vader had to wear the helmet, but also Vader was ashamed and hiding from himself, right? And Kylo Ren, obviously there's a lot of talk of him being a child in a mask and all that kind of stuff, and just wanting to play at being the Sith leader, or the Dark Lord of the Sith, or whatever it is. And then obviously like with Mando and the Mandalorians and all that kind of stuff, like that, usually like the masks seem to be
And
they have importance.
the acolyte too, in the
Oh yeah,
like big thing there. But I think in this case, I think it's just a pirate hat. Like it's
okay.
the equivalent of you know Captain Hook or Long John Silver. I don't know what are some pirates. Blackbeard.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I think it's just like
One-Eyed Willie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just the hat, but I don't know because like Brutus never wore it, so when he was like de facto captain of that crew, so
Exactly. Brutus didn't need it. You know what I mean? Brutus was the evil. Maybe evil's even too strong for Brutus, but like Brutus was the grizzled, tough guy, like shoot you in the back without a moment's notice, like pirate captain guy. And is Jod that, or is Jod really wanting to be that? You know what I mean? And when he puts the helmet on, he feels more like that's who he can be, or he can play at that role better. I don't know.
maybe,
yeah. So 33 knocks him out. They start heading for at Atten. There's a scene or a little shot where Jod wakes up, pulls the helmet off, and he's like, "No, like they're gonna, whatever." And then we don't see him get on the ship, but somehow he stows away on the ship. Maybe he learned that from Obi-Wan Kenobi, who, of course, was pretty sneaky about getting on Padme's ship in Revenge of the Sith. But yeah, he sneaks his way on, which of course we don't know right away. Like, and we see them, making the journey back to Atten, and they're talking about the fact that the Onyx Cinder is one of the Mint's own ships. They say that was Tack Rened's genius, is that he used one of the Mint's own ships, and so he would be able to get through the barrier or whatever. Which I don't know exactly how that works, but whatever. Like, how did he get there in the first place? To steal the ship to then come back, or did he get the ship somewhere else and then he used it to get in? Doesn't really matter. But what we know is that the key to getting through that barrier is that ship, because it belongs to the Mint. Although, to be honest with you, like the whole Republic emissary and all that kind of stuff, I'm a little confused about exactly how it all works. I don't really care, but I don't think it matters that much. But yeah. But anyway, the Onyx Cinder is the key, and that's how they're able to get through the barrier. Mm-hmm. But just as that's happening, Jod ends up revealing himself as being on the ship. I forget what the line is that one of the kids says. Jod responds to it in a threatening way. I forget. I should have written that down. But in any case, he reveals himself, and then he turns on his lightsaber and he chops 33's head off. Mm-hmm. Whoa.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. until they reattach his head. But yes, R.I.P. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been a couple R.I.P. moments for 33 so far in this series, I think. Like there's a few times where he could have been dead, but they put him back together or whatever, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to decapitate a droid is a pretty severe, like, you know, it's as close as maybe a droid would get to being uh, dead, I guess. But I feel like you can reattach the head. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
he'll probably be okay in the next episode. But it's still a frightening moment. It's a moment that is Jod announcing to the kids, like, this is what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
That droid's not going to be able to protect you, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that was intense. And even more intense than that, though, maybe even more threatening or scary than that, is just like the rant he goes on afterwards. He tells the kids, get down, and he yells at them, like, get down and don't say a word. And he's trying to get a message through to the pirate crew. That's not working. One of the kids is like, they're blocking it, they're jamming it.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to be told that. He's trying to steer the ship or take control of the ship, and the ship's on autopilot. The kids tell him that. He doesn't want to hear that either. So he flips out and he's like, would you stop, like, your incessant jabbering?
Mm-hmm.
And it's in response to Neil's comment about the ship being on autopilot. And Wim stands up. He's like, leave him alone, and he's like, I wasn't just talking about him, I was talking about all of you with your jabbering and all that stuff. And he's like really mean and very scary. And they have tears in their eyes. And he's like, what are you going to say? What are you going to do? And he calls them all, he tells them, you're all weak, spoiled children, which is pretty mean.
Mm-hmm.
Then Ryan, I fell all over myself in the last episode talking about how Jod is secretly a good guy, or, like he's trying to be bad. He's not as bad as he seems. He's doing all this because he knows the outcome is going to be mutually beneficial for him and the kids. I'm still there, but he's threatening the kids with a lightsaber, and he tells them that he's glad he saw their parents in the message, because, Ryan, he will carve their parents up piece by piece if the kids don't behave.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a pretty bad dude.
Pretty bad dude. Yep.
Yeah. Pretty bad dude. But
definitely gonna die
I'm still
the next episode.
No, he's not dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still going to argue. I still believe that what he's doing is his best sort of cosplay, or his best attempt at being the really bad dude. And you can say all kinds of bad things, right? Like you can do that. And as a parent, I can tell you too, like, when you've had, like, anybody who's a parent who's listening, you probably have had these moments as a teacher too, Ryan, but like when you are really frustrated and you are at the end of your rope,
mm-hmm.
and kids are pushing and
mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like I've had bad moments as a parent, like real bad moments where I've said things I'm not proud of, or reacted in a way I'm not proud of. You know what I mean? Never threatened to carve anybody up or their parents, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like this is two things. It's one, I think he's really trying as hard as he can to be that dude, number one. And number two, I think, yeah, he's reached his limit with the kids, and he just, like, he loses control and says some awful stuff, which can happen. So
yeah,
that's where I'm at with old Jod Nanabwood.
Okay, yeah, I think, like, my experience with these kind of situations, now that I've been, like, a teacher coach for the past few years, is, don't say anything you're not actually going to do. And because that's going to, if you make a threat and you don't follow through, it undermines your authority there. And so you need to also don't make sure the consequences are appropriate. Make sure they are logical consequences, and sometimes that may involve you taking a step back, and if you're feeling angry, take a step back, think about what would be a logical consequence, think about the rationale, and then share that. But don't write checks your ass can't cash.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that Jod needs to follow through and carve up their parents because
If
otherwise it
if
was an empty.
I don't know, they started behaving, so we will never know if he needs to carve them up into little pieces.
It's a good point. They did start
He did
behaving.
start
That's
behaving.
a good point. Yes. Yeah. All
But
right. Fair.
that
Fair.
was
Fair.
if they would have called his bluff there, that would have undermined him. And
Yeah.
many children will do that. So that's
Yeah.
a little bit of
right.
parenting educator advice for anyone who's listening.
Very good. Very good. So they approach the planet. They're landing. Moment I thought was interesting is that it does cut back to AT-AT and there's an announcement from the supervisor. It's like, this is the supervisor. There's a shipment arriving. All non-essential work can stop. And just like, I didn't really like pay attention to the voice too much of the supervisor, but I was like, this sounds so like Wizard of Oz. And I've heard people make comparisons, or like I've heard people already, say like, I feel like the supervisor is going to end up being like a Wizard of Oz type character where it's like a lot of bravado and, nothing really that impressive behind the curtain sort of thing, which I think makes a lot of sense. But I definitely got that vibe from this announcement. I was just like, who is this dork? And like, what's the deal with getting on the intercom, at this point? So yeah. And I felt like it was like they made a conscious effort to cut back to AT-AT and make room for that, like sort of announcement from the supervisor or whatever. So
yeah.
But yeah, they do land. Jod gets off the ship. He says he's a Republic emissary. I think that droids say to him, maybe you must be the Republic emissary or whatever. He's like, yeah. So, they have a thing where like the Onyx Cinder lands on this platform. It gets like locked in or whatever, like landing gear, like locked in. And then the whole platform starts to descend down into, the planet. And they end up down in the vault,
Yeah.
the mint. The mint. Right.
Denver mint.
Did you catch the reference, Jod, is like, how many of these are there? And I believe they say there's 1,139. They say 1,139. Okay. But of course the Star Wars number is 1138, so it's like a little joke, right? I guess. That was fun. Yeah.
Sensible chuckle.
Yeah. But so they end up down there. This is like basically the end of the episode, right? They end up down there. There's this enormous, there's one of 1,139 rooms full of these Republic credits or whatever. A pretty funny, but also I think like, meaningful moment where Jod is like sitting in front of like one of these crates or one of these skids of like credits, and they start like sliding down. He's like practically like letting them like shower him in the credits and
like a waterfall.
Yeah. And just the look on his face, Jude Law continues to be great, but just the look on his face is like, this is like everything I've ever wanted, and I'm in heaven.
He achieved nirvana.
Yeah. So that was good. Jod ends up going into the vault, or I guess that is the vault that he's in, right, when that's happening. But the kids are back on the ship, and the parents end up down there.
Float down on a little hover raft.
Yeah. Because the droids have been like, oh, these kids are missing. They're whatever. Like, we know who these kids are, and we'll alert the parents, or whatever it may be. So the parents end up down there. They have that nice moment where they reunite and they're all hugging each other. It's very nice again. It's warm between all of them. Wim and his dad. I think that's the most moving one, because that's the one that was the most difficult. Sort of relationship between the two of them, and like Wim's dad picks him up and he's embracing him, and there's a moment where Wim like buries his head in his dad's shoulder. It's like very, very, very emotional, very nice kind of moment between all of them. But then Jod sneaks up, and Jod turns on his lightsaber, and Jod is being very threatening, and that is the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. But one more thing I have to say about that, Ryan. I noticed this. There's quite a few things I missed, like on my first viewing, but this I noticed on the first viewing and was looking for again on the second viewing, which is there is like shots of the kids being reunited with their parents, and then there's a shot of Jod walking up to them, right? And then it cuts back to Fern and Farah, and Fern notices Jod. And then it cuts to the reverse shot of Jod, and Jod is like, he has like a warm look on his face, like a smile, or like a warm, like he's watching the parents and the kids together, and he's happy about it. And then when Fern looks at him, his face changes from being happy about it to, no, I'm going back to my threatening, intimidating look at Fern. And so to me, that's like, because I was watching this episode and I was like, man, I might have got it wrong last week. I kept talking about how my guy was really not that bad of a dude, but he's been slicing heads off, threatening to carve parents up. You know, the last thing that happens in the episode is he walks up like he's Michael Myers or something. And of course, that's still all true. But I feel like Jude Law is this really great actor who communicated a lot with a quick turn of expression in that moment. And I think the editing, like the order of shots and the rhythm of how they cut between those shots, you know, kind of emphasizes too, like, we are supposed to make the connection between like her look at him and the change in expression in his face, you know? So yeah, that's like, that was like a big moment to me. I thought that was really great. It was subtle, but it was like, I thought very meaningful. So you seem like you might be calling it up and taking a look at it again. Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm just thinking about it. I don't have the episode pulled up, but
gotcha.
I mean, for me, it was just like he was smiling because he was, as we just said, he was in heaven with all those Republic credits, and he was so happy about it. So he's going from like smiling there, and then he's like still so happy, and then he like is like, oh yeah, I gotta take care of one more thing, and that is carving these people up into little pieces. And then he's like, yeah, gotta do that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, that does make, I was gonna say that makes a lot of sense, because like if he could have been just like smiling and super happy because he's like, I've gotten all the credits I ever wanted, but then Fern sees him smiling and he's like, I don't want her to see me smiling. You know what I mean? That is also totally plausible. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think like the place where this all kind of gets weird for me is like this last scene here. Like, what exactly is he going to do? Like, he has a laser sword, but is he going to slice up every person on this planet in, like, the vicinity to be able to get, like, the credits off? Like, what is actually his plan here? Because, like, there's way more of everyone than there is of him. Jedi adjacent with a lightsaber or not. So like, yeah. to me, like him coming out and, you know, flaunting the lightsaber and having the big showdown there, like, to me that was like him at a disadvantage.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Like, one more thing I just want to point out about this, and then we'll talk about like maybe where the show is going to go next week, right? And like what our predictions are for the end of the show and all that kind of stuff. To me, again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought it was very don't know if telling is the right word, but like it was important that Fern is the one that caught him in that moment, and Fern is the one for whom he was like, no, no smiles. I got to go intense. I got to be threatening or
Mm-hmm.
intimidating, or I got to be the tough guy who doesn't care, or however you want to put it. Because that was Fern. Like until 2 episodes ago, that was Fern's entire thing. Like I have to project that I'm this like badass, that I don't care about anyone else, all that kind of stuff. Like that's my whole thing is I've got to project all that. And then she finally dropped the mask
Mm-hmm.
an episode or two ago. And now she's able to be like honest about how she feels. Like she can be kind to Wim, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was like she was because it could have been any one of those. It could have been Wim. Honestly, I mean, Wim's the one who uh, like was obsessed with the idea that like Jod's a hero because he's a Jedi and I want to be a Jedi and all that kind of stuff, right? It could have been Wim who was in that sequence of shots, but I think Fern was the right person to be in that sequence of shots because she spent a long time in this season trying to prove to everyone how tough she was, and I think that's what Jod is trying to do. Even if he ends up being like the baddest dude or whatever, a total villain, there's no redeeming moment for him in the next episode. Like, regardless, I think he's definitely trying to project that I'm the bad guy or, you should be afraid of me or whatever. And that's like kind of what she's been wanting to do up until recently. So I like that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as far as what's going to happen next week, what's going to happen in the finale, I don't know. I mean, Jod wanted his crew. Like he tried to get the security droids. Like, well, I'm a Republic emissary. You have to let my crew come down here, or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was trying to get the crew down there. To your point, then he wouldn't be outnumbered like he is.
Mm-hmm.
But he is outnumbered. So what is the plan? I'm thinking one possibility is that he's going to threaten the kids and the parents to help him in some way, make up a lie. I mean, he's pretty good at that, right? Telling stories, make up a lie, whatever it is. But, you know, even though he's got that lightsaber out and he's threatening them in that moment, if they go along with his story because they are threatened, is there a way that they help him? Okay, come on, help me get a bunch of credits onto the Onyx Cinder. We'll take it up, and then you go along with my story until I can take off and get out of here. Your kids are safe. You're safe. I don't care about you guys. I'm not going to carve you up into little pieces
Mm-hmm.
slowly. I'll just take off with my credits. Like that seems to be the most likely, or I guess that would be a pretty straightforward way for things to go. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know what's he going to do.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility that he will take another hostage, um, put the blade at someone else's neck,
Uh-huh.
here, and be like load up the ship and everything, and then whatever blunder will happen, and then he'll be defeated. I it's this show's in a weird place right now. I feel like it's going to be kind of challenging to stick the landing. In one, like, because these have been pretty short episodes. We're talking like of actual like screen time, not counting credits and recaps. We're at like 30-ish minute episodes here. Um,
Yeah.
like however this scenario gets solved, um is what it is, but I think like there's still like this much bigger mystery than that has been introduced here about like the nature of this planet and why it was hidden, and all of that. That's like bigger than, will Jod get away with the credits or whatever. But also there's like this mystery around like, it, is he a Jedi or something, or was he, or whatever is going on with that. So I think that's like two big kind of lingering things. Um,
Hmm.
so it's a not an enviable task to kind of wrap up those threads um in like 28 minutes or whatever. Um, but there's also, the idea that this show might have been created to be a multi-season thing, which from, I mean, whatever the information that we have, um, shows that the show is not very successful, and a show that had a higher budget but also had a higher viewership was just canceled after one season. So
Yeah.
it just stands to reason that this show is over after this season. But it'll be interesting if they leave a bunch of plot threads hanging, or if they just knock out every one of those in this last episode.
Well, I would prefer that we don't learn about Jod's background personally, or like don't. How do I would prefer if they don't feel like, oh, we have to explain that, personally. But we'll see. I think that being said, though, I think like who's Jod? I said like way back when, at the beginning of the show, that I thought the show was going to be about like, for all these characters, like who do I want to be, and for the kids, like a lot of the talk is like, who are you going to be when you grow up, or like how are you going to navigate growing up and all that kind of stuff. And I think for Jod, it's going to be like the ultimate conflict is like, who am I going to be? Am I going to be this guy who waves around a lightsaber and threatens to carve little children and their parents up? Am I going to be like, right now he's gotten everything he's ever wanted, almost. He's close to getting almost everything he's ever wanted. Is that who he's going to decide to be? You know what I mean? Because if let's say he is able to pull off a scheme where he can fill that ship up with those Republic credits and take off, is he going to do it? I mean, it would make sense that he would, except for I feel like he's going to be put in a situation where he's going to have to choose. Like the only way to escape with those credits is going to be at the peril of those kids, and he's not going to. I feel like he's going to choose the health and safety of those kids over, being a rich pirate. But I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's a long way of getting to the fact that like if we're going to learn about him and who he is or who he was before or whatever, I only want to know in this last episode what I need to know in terms of whatever journey he's on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, however those questions are going to be answered. Like, is it relevant to the decision he's going to make? Is that why we're learning about it in the last episode? Then I want to know about it. But if it's just like, okay, well, he can use the Force, but we've been told that only so many people from that time period know how to use the Force. And if he can use the Force, he must have been trained by X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't really care. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't care, but like sometimes like getting the answers to those questions is almost, oh, so he's another Jedi that like, if it's just, oh, he survived Order 66 and did the same thing as Cal Kestis and Kanan Jarrus and everything else. Like, does that make the show better when they tell me that? Or is it just because like a bunch of people will be going, well, I don't know, because there's nothing on the Wikipedia page that says how he trained or learned to use the Force or whatever. Like, I don't really care. And there's so many avenues in which they could answer that question for people who really want to know the answer to that question, like comics and novels and, whatever else. So like, I guess what I'm trying to say is don't dilute the final episode by feeling like you have to answer some question because otherwise it's an unanswered question. Like, I'm actually fine with unanswered questions, especially the kind that are just like totally about lore. If it's about his motivations and the decision he makes in the final episode, then let's answer the question. But if it's just like, we haven't categorized this guy yet, does he need to be categorized? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I pretty much agree with you, but I think that's not how Star Wars operates these days.
Maybe.
And I don't think that's the way Star Wars has operated since the prequels, because everything gets explained.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's
But sometimes, yeah. Sometimes though they do explain things in like other media though.
Yeah.
Like we didn't really get much of an explanation about who Captain Phasma is to the benefit of the movies. Like I didn't need the movies to stop and try to explain where Captain Phasma came from. But they had a novel and they had some books and whatever else, right? Like and I think there's plenty of examples from like the sequels and from Rogue One and stuff like that where the movies would reference things or maybe make a comment here and there, but if you really wanted to like know a lot about it or
Mm.
whatever, it had, you had to go somewhere else. So
I think in I think it's kind of different in the films because screen time is so much more limited. That
yeah,
they do, push some of that stuff to the extended universe stuff. But
yeah,
with the TV shows, I feel like pretty they pretty much cover things
yeah,
as they go. So if and I think like this is something that would be considered a big enough deal. But like, yeah, I mean, I'm also like very okay if they don't explain it. And sometimes I think, intending to explain something and then losing that avenue can create some like actually some kind of fun ambiguity. Like I still think some of the the threads left by the acolyte are might be better than if they were explained in some ways.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're going to, just knowing the nature of Star Wars TV shows, I feel like they're going to try to cram a whole bunch of stuff in this last episode, and I'm a little bit worried about that.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty fair, pretty reasonable. In terms of will there be a second season, I guess that's probably a topic for us to address maybe more next week after we
Mm-hmm.
see how this one
Yeah.
ends. But I do know that John Watson, Christopher Ford have said like, well, we have ideas, like we're ready to write a second season if um if they want to do it. So I think there's a possibility. Obviously, you point to some pretty logical, some evidence that would indicate like maybe they're not really looking to greenlight a second season of this show. And also, it just feels like they're not like there's very little TV announced.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true of Marvel as well, right? Like, there's not a lot of Marvel stuff on the horizon in comparison to like what they had been
In
doing.
comparison, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I think reasons it could happen still, even if the viewership for the show has been a little underwhelming, is that um, I think like John Watts is somebody who has some cachet, you know what I mean, which
Mm-hmm.
maybe would help make this happen. And then I don't know, man, it might be one of well, I don't know. That probably doesn't. I was gonna say it might be one of those things where it's like it's not only about like overall viewership, but also like who's watching and of the people that are watching, what are they saying about it? And
Mm-hmm.
is this like does this seem to be like something that is a benefit to like how people feel about Star Wars and
Hearts and
stuff like that?
minds. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because like if kids are watching, and I'm not sure that they are at all,
Absolutely
but
not.
if kids are watching, well, yeah, but like okay, like so for instance, like my kid is watching and loves it, right? Kevin, his family, like his whole family, and kids, parents, grandparents, like they're all watching it and they're all loving it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think like when you look online, like at the conversation, it seems like people are overwhelmingly very positive about this show, which I didn't necessarily expect. But it seems like there's not a lot of negativity around the show, and so if kids are watching, which they might not be, but if kids and families are watching, I feel like that might be something where they go, okay, well that's a good thing. What's happening? Do you see that?
Yeah, you just got a little
Whatever,
thumbs
doesn't
up.
matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I did some secret hand gesture, I guess. If kids are watching, no, they're not going to do it for you, Ryan. That's a me thing.
Okay.
If kids are watching, that might be a positive. If families are watching, that might be a positive. If the conversation is overwhelmingly like positive and making people like, if they think it's making people like Star Wars, the people that are watching it or whatever, that might be positive. And I mean, the budget was like half of the Acolyte's
Yeah.
budget. You know what I mean? I know it was still a big budget, but it was like literally like half the budget of the Acolyte. So, or close to. So, I mean, all that stuff, I feel like it's at least possible, is what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah. but I think the people who are watching it and have been positive about it, but I think they're people who are predisposed to watch it. They knew exactly what it was going to be and like made the conscious decision like, hey, I'm going to watch this and I know it's family friendly, so I'm going to have, my family watch it with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's um and but then like so many people are not watching it who are, people who are just like, nope, that does I do not want to see like little kid Goonies Star Wars. Like many like anecdotally, uh the the people who have watched like the quote unquote big Star Wars shows, like Mando and stuff, that I know are not watching this show. And most of them did not watch The Acolyte either.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think, yeah, I'm sure you're right. But, just devil's advocate or whatever, it's like if you're Disney or whoever's making these decisions about what's going to get another season, what's not, or whatever, if is there a world, and this is probably naive, but is there a world where, okay, well, only 100 people watched, I'm keeping the number small to make it manageable,
Mm-hmm.
only 100 people watched Skeleton Crew, but 95% of them report that they love it,
Mm-hmm.
but 200 people watched The Acolyte, but like
10 people
still
liked
only
it.
90. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there a world where they say like it's okay that fewer people are watching
Mm-hmm.
if they're more satisfied, and like we're better off having a smaller number of people watch it but love it than we are having a larger number of people watch it but like half of them are pissed off by it and maybe won't watch the next thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, like a lot of the people that are pissed off about The Acolyte are assholes.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of reasons that like this is not really an equitable or fair
Mm-hmm.
thing if it works out for Skeleton Crew and it didn't for The Acolyte. Like I'm not even trying to justify it like, oh yeah, they shouldn't have done a second season of Acolyte, but they should have Skeleton Crew. That's not what I'm saying, but
Mm-hmm.
I just am trying to be realistic about it. I feel like there's some sticking points where it might not have been very appealing to do another season of Acolyte that aren't there for Skeleton Crew.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, I think. Like, I think even maybe more so than the ratings thing, it just to me feels like they're not doing new Star Wars shows right now on Disney Plus. So that might be the reason, more than anything
Yeah.
else. And that might have been a huge part of the Acolyte thing too, is that
Mm-hmm.
they're not doing. And I've seen people point to, well, yeah, but they spent a shit ton of money on Andor, and Andor didn't do that well. Well, when did they greenlight Andor season 2? Because it was a long ass time ago. They were shooting it like during COVID. It was
Mm-hmm.
a long time ago. Or was that the first season?
That was the first season.
No,
But
that was the second season, right? No.
it was.
That was the first season.
Yeah,
Still, they
COVID
shot it a
was
long time
still
ago,
going
though.
on when they were shooting the second season, and there were
Yeah.
reasons they had to stop and stuff. But um,
Oh, that was a writer strike, is why they
yeah,
had to stop and start again. My bad.
um,
Yeah, but still, they filmed it a long time ago, and it got greenlit longer than that. So I think that's a different kind of situation.
and I think like Andor is kind of what you're describing. It is that show that did not maybe get the mainstream viewership that
Mm-hmm.
Disney would have wanted, but it got like critical and viewer praise.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was well regarded, and that show is like way more expensive.
Yeah.
But it is,
Yeah.
I think, like it. Andor is like the type of kind of prestige show that you want. That's nice to have attached to your brand and your streaming service.
Yeah.
And there is like
But
hope that season 2 is going to come and people are going to be talking about it, and everyone who watched Andor season 1 is going to be like counting the days and being very vocal about it and being like, this is the best Star Wars shit ever. Like, and
Yeah.
that's going to probably get people to watch season 1 who missed it the first time around, because if it can kind of become that like trending zeitgeist or whatever, like everyone will be watching it.
Yeah. 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 I don't know. I mean, it's I guess a fool's errand to try to guess or whatever, but like, I don't think season 3 of Andor would get greenlit now. You know what I mean? At that price and everything else, like, I guess maybe it would, but I think it worked out really well that they were like, you know what, let's just do 2. Like, we can't do, because it was supposed to be 5 seasons,
Yeah.
and they're like, that's too much. We can't do 5. I think I think it worked out really well for everybody, because I'm not sure they would have gotten all those seasons. Like, when they first were wanting to do that, that was 2019, when Disney was like, yeah, let's spend endless money on Disney Plus, and that's not the mentality anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we lucked out with Andor. The things aligned in the best way, and the show got made, and it's going to end, on its own terms. Skeleton Crew, I hope, is a season of a TV show that will feel complete if it doesn't get a second season. But I think there's a chance it will. We won't learn anything, I'm sure, until Star Wars Celebration, if there is another season 2. So that'll be another thing that'll be, I guess it could get out, but they won't announce it until Celebration, if they were even to do it there. So
yeah. And I mean, there's the other possibility, which seems to be happening with some Disney projects, where the formerly TV shows are being reworked into movies, and it may be like a straight to Disney Plus hour-and-a-half movie that wraps things up. Something
that could be cool. That could actually be pretty cool. Or, I think these kids could show up in other Mandoverse projects, whatever Dave Filoni's movie is. Maybe there's a little crossover with Skeleton Crew there in some way. Jod, good guy Jod, will pitch in to help defeat Thrawn in Dave Filoni's movie, and perhaps there'll be a cameo for the Wise Elders or something like that. You know what I mean?
Maybe he'll be teamed up with Thrawn.
Oh, maybe. All right, cool. Well, why don't we wrap it up there, Ryan, and we will return once more next week to discuss the Skeleton Crew final episode. Until then, you can message us if you want to join the conversation. You can message us at blockaderunnerpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Blue Sky, or you could join our Discord, and we put the link to our Discord in the show notes every week. So we would love to have you jump in the Discord there. I just learned about a Death Star style wall panel that you can buy that's like $150, and it's like an LED wall panel. It looks like one of the walls of the Death Star, and it like lights up and stuff like that. Learned about that in our Discord today. Wouldn't have known about it.
Wow.
Haven't bought it, but Ian shared that in our Discord today, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, you can join our Discord if you want to chat Star Wars. Ryan, if listeners want to follow you, maybe see what's going on with the search for a new car, how your recovery is happening, etc., where can they do that?
Yeah, DVD menus on Blue Sky, and standard issue gaming on Blue Sky.
All right, very good. Well, thanks very much for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Blockade Runner podcast.